Why am I getting the circle of death? I think I'm online, but I'm getting the circle of death for some reason. Okay, I'm gonna assume I'm here because it tells me I am, and YouTube never lies apparently. So, hi everybody, welcome tonight. We're here for week number 2 of our Advent study, and for any of you who want to grab your Bibles while I do a few shout outs here tonight, we're gonna be looking at Matthew chapter 25. So, I'd love to have you join on there. And Chris Jacobs is going to be my first shout out. Chris and Kevin, how you doing? We're glad you guys are on tonight. I promised I'd give her a shout out. I also promised I'd give my Aunt Kate a shout out. She's here, but she is not tech savvy enough to make a comment. But we're glad to have her here, and she says hello to all of you, and she appreciates being a part of the study. So cool. Before I do some shout outs, though, I want to show you guys something really cool that we have. This week, Susan and I got something new at our house. We got these like internet things that run certain things in our house, which means I could turn the heat up and down or turn the air conditioner on, or I can even torture my wife by turning the lights on and off at our house by doing this. See, right now at our house, Susan's sitting in the front room and the lights going on and off, and I think that's really funny. So, all right, I'm done being annoying with that. So, all right, I'm turning off my phone, Susan. You don't have to get upset. Okay, cool. So, yeah, and glad to have you guys here, and appreciate you guys being here. I got a bunch of shout outs to do, and we got a great lesson tonight. We're going to be looking at a parable, actually, as a part of what Jesus was teaching us about his return, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you guys. Who we got here? Beth Reedy, how you doing? Appreciate you being here tonight. Hi, Susan, and I'm not going to blow the light up. See, my phone's off now. So, Brian Lynch is saying hi to Aunt Kate, and appreciate that. Sandy Freewalt's in the house tonight. How you doing, Sandy? And you know what they say about paybacks? I do know what they say about paybacks. Pastors don't ever get them. That's what I heard, anyways. So good. And Chris Jacobs, I gave a shout out to. Hi, Chris and Kevin. Amy Hogshead is saying hello to Bishop Parker Miley. That is Bishop Parker Miley's name, and you should all refer to him as such. Parker's laughing at Don Renninger's comment, which I did not appreciate, about my replacing God the Father in the picture. I'm not responsible for those pictures. I don't make them. So there you go. Hi, Cindy Moran. Haven't heard from you for a while. Glad to have you in here tonight. Got your Bible open ready. That's awesome. Linda Horn, welcome. Glad that you're here. And Don Renninger is making comments about thumbnails. And Jess Skinner, yay, just made it. Welcome, Jess. Parker says those are called government spies. Oh, no wonder they gave them away for free. Now, anyways, and Crystal Dove, good to have you here tonight. Crystal Dove working hard down at the, along with a bunch of other ladies, working real hard down at the ladies' Christmas dinner tonight. I didn't get here in time to have supper because I was on a mission of mercy tonight, but I did get back in time for a piece of cheesecake, which was pretty awesome. I'm expecting the sugar crash to hit in about 28 minutes, so hopefully I'll have made my point by then. And Miriam Lynch. Hi, Miriam. It's good to have you on tonight. I appreciate you joining us as well. All right, cool. 2 other announcements I have. I just want to make you guys aware of. First of all, we're going to start making this public now that we've got it running properly. Wayne Street actually has another YouTube channel. It is the Rage Podcast. So if you're interested in Parker and my's weekly comments on whatever it is we're commenting on, you can follow the Rage Podcast here on YouTube. That's why the Rage Podcast no longer shows up on the YouTube channel. It has its own channel. So if you're interested in that, you can click over and follow that, and you can hear Parker and I ruminate on all kinds of topics, different things around the world, whatever is usually on Parker's mind we talk about. And we have some great conversations there. So if you're interested in following that, please don't leave this page, but you can follow the Rage Podcast on here on YouTube. And Parker says it's the best podcast around. And since we all know that Bishop Parker Miley is never wrong, y'all take that as the gospel truth. The other announcement I have is very exciting. I got a phone call a couple of hours ago from Moeller Windows, and the church's windows are coming in starting tomorrow. So you're going to start seeing some construction around here. The new windows are going to be going in. They're going to begin in the boiler room tomorrow just because they want to start with one that's not out in a public area. So they're going to be working on, just for this week, they're going to be working on the windows they can reach from the ground. and which makes sense. And then they'll be renting a lift machine once they get a little better idea what they're in for. And so you're going to be seeing that over the next couple of weeks. Any luck, the windows will be in by Christmas. So Wayne Street is getting new windows for Christmas. So Merry Christmas to you all, and thank you all for supporting that project. And we're looking to replenish those funds because we were able to pay in cash for both the new roof and the windows. And it won't be too long before we're going to start seeing work on that. And I just learned that, I mean, this is late breaking news right there because I just found out a few hours ago. So be in prayer for the workers. Like I said, they'll be here starting tomorrow afternoon, working down in the boiler room. And so we'll be seeing some progress on that as well. And Matt Clements, buddy, it's good to see you. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I appreciate having you here. We currently got 29 people logged in, so thank you to all 29 of you who are here. And without further ado, let's find out what we're talking about here tonight. So last week we kind of talked through some basic things about Jesus' return that he talked about. Today, though, we're going to talk about something probably a little more familiar than what last week's passage was. This week, we're looking at a parable that he told about his return, and it gets some pretty good information about who should be concerned and why. So that's what we're going to be looking at. Now, this is again a continuation from when Jesus and the disciples were leaving the temple, and the disciples were like, "Man, this temple is awesome," and Jesus is like, "This thing's going to be torn down, so don't get too attached to it." I mean, that's like, geez, Jesus, a little buzzkill there, but that's what he says. So and that's what they're up against. So in light of that, the conversation goes on. There is a section in chapter 25 I skipped because Matthew chapter 25 is a really long chapter. But I skipped ahead because I wanted to get to this parable that we're going to look at tonight. So anyways, this is Matthew. We're in chapter 25, and we're going to skip down to verse 31, which is where this conversation kind of begins. Okay. So, oh, man, I lost my pencil. Ugh. Okay. Verse 31, but when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit upon his glorious throne. I remember one of the things he made very clear last week when we were talking through that passage was, if somebody says, "Hey, Jesus is hiding down here," or "I saw the Messiah, he's over there," or "We got to travel out there to see the Messiah," Jesus is like, "Yeah, don't waste time with that, because when I finally return, you're not going to wonder, you're not going to have questions. It's going to be incredibly obvious that it has happened." So this is not going to be a secret thing. It's not going to be a hidden thing. It's not going to be only to a couple. This is going to be something everybody's going to see, and we're going to witness that very, very clearly in this passage for tonight about what this is going to do. And so I think we can all agree that the Son of Man, which is a phrase Jesus often used to refer to himself, he says when he comes in his glory and all the angels with him. So I mean, this is the whole Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade that's going to be in this, and he's going to sit on his glorious throne. And we know that everybody's going to see that because in verse 32, the very next verse, he says, all the nations will be gathered in his presence. So y'all going to be there. And again, it's very interesting to notice his phrasing here. A lot of people want to say, well, only certain people will be gathered or whatever. That's not what he says here. Nations, plural. So the insiders, the outsiders, the in-laws and the bylaws and all this thing, everybody's going to be there. And everybody's going to be a part of this. Probably what we would refer to in familiar terms today as Judgment Day is going to be here. And so Jesus is sitting on the throne. All these things are going to happen, and everybody's going to be present and witnessing what happens. Okay, so all the nations will be gathered in his presence, and he will separate the people as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. Shameless plug to last week's sermon. Jesus using a shepherding analogy. Nowhere do we have any inclination or any indication that he ever spoke to a shepherd. No shepherds are ever mentioned throughout the entire story, except in the Christmas story. None of the disciples were shepherds. The people Jesus interacted with them that we know of, none of them were shepherds. None of them were indicated to be shepherds. Yet Jesus, who was a carpenter, that's what Joseph was, makes shepherding analogies a lot. So for somebody who didn't at least have a meaningful enough experience with a shepherd that one of the gospel writers recorded it, yet something about a shepherd very much moved him. And I know there's some shepherding images from the Old Testament. Of course, David would be one of the great examples of that. But I don't know. There's a lot of examples from the Old Testament that Jesus never does anything with. So the fact that he latched on to shepherds, I think, is indication of how much the shepherds showing up at his birth meant to his parents, and they shared that with him as he grew up. So making another shepherding analogy here. And he says he's going to separate the sheep from the goats. So he's going to place the goats at his, the sheep at his right hand. This is I don't know how you're looking at it on the screen, but here is my right hand. So the sheep are going to be over there. The goats are going to be on his left hand over there. And so they're going to be divided. And anytime in the Bible or from this culture, when you see somebody's on the right side is the good side. The right side is it's the right side. So that's the side you want to be on. You know, the left side is about to get the shaft, is what normally happens here. So he's going to divide them out, and he's going to be able to recognize them. Obviously, even to my untrained eye, I don't know much about sheep and goats, but I can tell the difference between the two. I know which one is which. So, pretty much everybody's going to be able to do that. They're going to divide the two sides out, and they're going to be there. And the Son of Man, Jesus, who's sitting on the throne, is going to have some things to say to them. Okay? So Jesus' parable then continues, verse 34. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world." Okay. So he turns to this side and says, "I got something good for you guys. It's going to be forever. You're going to love it. It's going to be awesome and fantastic." So obviously the right side, as usual, is the blessed side. And they are the people who are going to be I'm trying to stay away from the word rewarded, because that's not really what this is. They're the ones that are going to be blessed. They're going to be given this because they are on the right side. And by right side, I mean correct side in this case. And so he says here. Now, obviously, if that side's getting blessed, you can guess the other side probably not so blessed. And as we read down here, we're going to find out that they're not getting blessed. But so the question is going to become, number one question, when we're separating sheep and goats, we kind of knew the goats on the left side were not going to fare very well. Biggest question, what is the biggest question you're going to want to ask at this point? Somebody jump in the comments and tell me, okay, if the sheep and the goats are going to be divided or going to be separated, and you got sheep on one side, goats on the other, and the first thing he says to the sheep is, "Come, you are blessed by my Father, and inherit the kingdom that we prepared for you." You can guess the other side, the goat side, is not going to get such a great blessing. What's the number one question, all of us, all 32 of us who are logged in right now, what's the number one question that we have? Well, you guys think on that and type that in the comments. We'll discuss that. I'm going to give you more shout outs. Eric, glad to have you here, buddy. I appreciate you and Laura showing up. And Matt Clement says, "I am a goat." No, you're not, Matt. Let's not go there. You're not a goat. And unless you mean the greatest of all time, maybe that's what you meant. I don't know. But the great unifier. Jesus is the great unifier because everybody is there. And as we're going to find out throughout this parable, everybody is there, and everybody also has a little bit of say as to which group they're going to end up in. So that's gonna be something we're going to want to pay attention to, which is back to my question: what's the number one thing you want to know? Nobody's talking to me here. What's the number if people are going to be divided in two groups? One's getting blessed and one ain't. What's the number one question that you have? What question would you want to ask? You're going to raise your hand and be like, "Yes, I have a question here in the back. What do you want to know?" Why? Why are they getting divided? Parker, that good guess, but I think there's a little more information you're going to have. You're going to want to know not necessarily why. You're going to want to know how, because I want to be in the sheep group. Because the sheep group is on the right side and they seem to be doing well. I mean, look, if I was going to get up on Sunday and say, "Okay, today here at Wayne Street, Pastor Tim, me, I'm going to divide everybody here into two groups. Okay, I'm going to put all you guys over here. I'm going to put all you guys over here. And the group that's on my left side, which is over here, I'm going to go down and punch every one of you in the face." Number one question is, how do I get on the right side? Isn't that what you want to know? I mean, if two groups are getting divided, one group is getting something great, one isn't. The first thing you're going to want to know is, how do I get in the good group? And again, had you all been there, you would have known that. Anytime you're dividing up teams for anything, and if there's some kind of criteria to getting in one group or the other, the first thing you're going to want to know is, how do I get in a good group? Because how do I get there? Well, exactly. How can I not be a goat? So that's what everybody wants to know. How can I avoid being a goat? So here's what Jesus says, and we're going to go through this one kind of slowly because I want you to see that he chooses his, as he always does, chooses his words here very, very carefully. Okay? All right, so verse 34, the king will say to those on his right, come who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. Great. Here's why they're sheep. He says, for you hungry, for I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you invited me home. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited me. Now, this is a place where Jesus chooses his words, again, as I said, very carefully. And I want to go through what this means, okay? The first group he said, and there's an order here. So the order is this. Here are the things that Jesus says the people who are sheep recognized God himself, because that's what he's talking about, the king, recognized the king when he was in these 6 predicaments, we'll call it. He was hungry, thirsty, without a home. He was hungry, thirsty, a stranger, naked, sick, and in prison. Those are the 6 things. That was an awesome list there, wasn't it? So hungry, thirsty, a stranger, without a home, naked, and sick, and in prison. Now that was 7. How did I get 7 out of 6? All right, we'll try this one more time. Hungry, thirsty, stranger, naked, sick, and in prison. There it is. So those are the 6. Now everybody now says, hold up. When did I see the king like that? Because I'm pretty sure I would have noticed that. If I'm walking down the street here today, or if I'm on my way home, and I would happen to see, some important person that everyone would know, like the king, and I would see that person, walking down the street with no clothes on, I'm pretty sure I would have noticed that. That doesn't seem like something that would have gotten past me. Or if I was out somewhere and I saw the king and he was like doubled over with hunger pains and rolling around the ground, I'm pretty sure I'm going to notice that. Or if I saw the king and the king was in prison, you can bet for sure I would know about that because the media would just run all over that. So when exactly did that happen? When did I see you like that? And let's go into a little detail here about what each one of these things means, okay? So he starts off to say, you saw me hungry and you gave me something to eat. When we have hunger, we're talking about physical need, okay? I'm hungry because I want food. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. And again, I don't mean hungry because lunchtime was 20 minutes ago. I don't mean that kind of hungry. This is the kind of hungry that we have gone, days without. The kind of hunger that we don't know in this country. Thank the good Lord. But the kind of hunger that spans time and spans space and causes health problems and creates looting and robbing and violence and that kind of hunger. That's what he's talking about here. So you're talking about there was a time when there was a physical need, which is what being hungry is. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing we saw the king is thirsty. That is lack of water. Again, today, this is not something that we worry all that much about. Again, look at this monstrous water bottle I got here sitting on my desk. Look at this thing. This thing is huge, okay? Water is not something we worry about. We have modern irrigation techniques to make sure our crops have ways to go. We have water purifications. In fact, right down by my house, there's a water purification place here in St. Mary's. We turn on water and we take showers and we wash our clothes. I mean, again, access to clean water is not something that we ever even think about. But in the ancient world, in fact, up until really our grandparents' generation, that was a big concern because clean water was not something, everybody having a well and multiple faucets in their house. Not the way that worked. So what the king said is I was lacking water being the element that helps me to live. Not only does it hydrate me, it washes me, gives me clean clothes, and it grows my food, or at least, whether the food be meat or vegetables, it grows my food. So is basically the ability to sustain life. So that's what not having water means. Stranger. Now the way Jesus frames this here, I went back and checked in the original language a little bit. Stranger means obviously somebody in a foreign country. So it's not like, I'm over at the gas station across the street and I walk in, I see somebody I don't know. It's not that kind of stranger. This is a stranger that would be like a refugee, or somebody who came in from outside, or was looking for help in some way. This is somebody who is away from their home, much like in the sermons the last couple of weeks we've talked about Mary and Joseph. Very similar to the situation they would have been in, where they were in Bethlehem, a place neither one of them lived, permanent, as a permanent fixture. So they were strangers in a strange town, in a strange land, in a very strange situation. So that's the kind of situation we're talking about here when he says stranger. And so basically what he's saying is, I didn't have a home, so you invited me into yours. Okay, I was a stranger and you invited me to your home. That's what he said. So I was outside of my comfort zone. I was outside of what was normal for me. I was out looking for whatever, and I didn't have a home. I had no place to go, and you allowed me to be part of your home. Big honor. I mean, it's a big honor. So that's how we saw the king. The next was naked. I always thought of this as kind of like like an exposure kind of thing. It was cold and I didn't have enough clothes and that kind of stuff, or I was poor. I actually think it's bigger than this. I think what he's actually getting at with the naked thing is it's a dignity, a dignity thing. And I say that knowing I'm wearing a shirt with a turkey on it, but clothing is a way we have dignity. If you we've all had that horrible situation where we split the seam of our pants or something like that. That's a very undignified place to be. And so if for whatever reason, again, I'm wearing 3 T-shirts right now. So clothing is not a big deal to us, but that's not always been the case. So if you saw somebody who was not able to have dignity because their clothes were threadbare, or they didn't have enough clothing, or they'd outgrown their clothing or something like that, what providing clothing to somebody in that situation is giving them dignity. So whenever we saw the king, lacking dignity, we arranged for him to have it back. That's the way I look at that there. The next thing he says is, I was sick and you cared for me, meaning there was my health was somehow compromised. Maybe I was sick, maybe I was injured, maybe I was, struggling under too much pressure, pick your thing. But something was causing my health to be compromised, and you helped me uncompromise. Is that right? Uncompromise my health. So you somehow arranged for a situation where I could go from being sick to being well, and you helped me do that. Whether it be through helping carry a load I couldn't carry, or whether it be bring me meals when I'm not feeling well, or whether it be I was sad and you tried to encourage me, whatever it is. But somehow somebody was having a health issue of some kind, whether small or large, and that person meant enough to you that you responded, did something about it. That's what we're talking about there with being sick and being cared for. And the last thing he says is, I was in prison and you visited me. And hey, Angie, I'm glad you made it home okay. We're in Matthew 25 if you want to join us. Matthew 25, verse, what we're at here, 37 or 36. And so he says, I was in prison and you visited me. Actually, this one probably does translate today to today fairly accurately. Obviously, if you're in prison, you're there for a reason. Now, we could say the reason was, unjustified. Maybe you were convicted of something you didn't do, or maybe the judge overreacted. But for whatever reason, to land in prison, whether you deserve to be there or not, it's a very place where you go where you're not accepted. Society really frowns on that. So somebody who, and if and I've done work in the past, and a number of you have. I know Jim Myers has some work with prisoners and people who are in the jails. And I've done a extensive amount of that too, visiting and doing some mentoring programs and things like that with people who've been in prison. And one of the biggest things that those poor people have to overcome is the stigma that comes with it. You know, conviction on their record and things like that. It's a very steep hill to climb. Again, I'm not saying it's not always deserved, but it's still a big thing to get over. And one of the things about prison, particularly when people are in jail or in prison when they're young, is that they don't develop anymore, which means, you know, if you go in for 5 years when you're 18 and you come out at 23, you're still really just 18, because you don't have social skills, you don't have the ability to take care of yourself, you don't have a job, and that is a great hurdle to overcome for young people who've gotten in trouble with the law. Again, not falling into the legal system for that. They clearly had done things they shouldn't have been doing, but that is a big stigma to overcome, and that can lead to people who are not accepted in society, and people want to look down on them and things like that. And Jesus says, look, or in Jesus' parable, he says, the king says, I was in a situation where I was not accepted because I had this black mark on my record, and yet you visited me. You made time for me. You were seen publicly with me. You know, regardless of the problem that would have led to with your reputation or whatever. But you didn't shun me when the rest of the world did. When I became unacceptable for whatever reason, because obviously a criminal record is something that, you know, is frowned upon. You didn't shun me. You know, you still visited me. You still talked to me, not talked at me, which is two very different things. And because of that, you made me feel like a person, treating me like a person. And I can tell you, and again, we can certainly have the debate of whether or not they deserve this. But one thing prisoners are not, particularly people who are in prison, are not treated like is human beings. And again, we can all make the argument that, well, they shouldn't have done whatever, gotten it. Agreed. I'm totally with you. But at the same time, that person has a life that they need to reestablish once they pay their debt to society. And they're going to need good people to come alongside them, because if good people don't come alongside them, guess who does? You know, bad people, and people who are going to be, you know, less than positive influences upon them. And that doesn't help anybody. So that's what the king is saying. So I had physical needs that you helped care for. I had need for nourishment, which was the water that you helped care for. I was without a home, and you shared yours with me. I was out dignity, and you helped me regain my dignity. My health was somehow compromised, and you helped me get it back. And I was unaccepted by society, and you visited me and made time for me and paid attention to me anyways. So in Jesus' parable, one of the thing that made the difference between the sheep and the goats, meaning the good and the bad, was people who are willing to go out of their way to provide these things, you know, to help people overcome hunger, thirst, being without a home, being without dignity, compromised health, and people who were unaccepted. You went out of your way to help somebody with those, and in doing that, you actually did it for me. Now, that is a big statement. Think about what that is. All these people in society who are outcasts. Because look, if you don't have enough to eat, it's because, I mean, one of the reasons is because people aren't concerned about you. You know, if you're lacking water, well, you got nobody there giving it to you. If you don't have a home, you've basically been thrown out by everybody. If you don't have dignity, then nobody's telling you to take, you know, have some self-esteem. Nobody's teaching you that. If you don't have your health, and nobody wants to be around you because we don't want to catch what you got. And if you're unaccepted, obviously you don't have a community around you. So what Jesus is saying here is that there are people out there who had a natural inclination. They weren't necessarily looking for you know, some kind of great blessing, but because of what God had done for them, they went forward and did these good deeds, these good things for other people. And that's how they got to consider to be the sheep. Now, I'm not done making a point about that. We're going to move on, but I want you to hang on to that because before the next half hour, before we're done, I'm going to come back and talk about that. But I want you to think in your mind about that. About Jesus says, because you have done these things, you know, you identify with the king in the parable. You and the king are tight, because the king in this parable, and this is the really controversial part. the king, in making this declaration, identifies with all the people who are suffering these problems. The king doesn't identify with the upper class. The king identifies with the people who have no class, which again is turning the whole thing on its head. Because most of the time, when you think, even our leaders today, our elected leaders, presidents and governors and senators and representatives and all these things, we don't think about them going out hanging out with people who don't have enough water to drink, or people who are in prison. We don't think about them. We may think about them interacting with people who ought to be in prison, but usually they're not. And that's what it is. We look at this and go, kings don't do that. Kings don't identify with the people who are in the lowest rung of society. Kings are at the top. We want to look up to see the king. And the king is saying, no, the people I identify with are the people you see when you look down. And that is a whole different mindset from how it looks any other time. I mean, again, compare that to what we learn in the Old Testament. What happens in the Old Testament if you step out of line? Remember the Holy of Holies? They sent a priest in there once a year, and when they sent him in, they tied a rope around his waist. So if he screwed up and got himself killed, nobody had to go in and get him. They could drag him out. Okay? That's not a God who says, this person who doesn't have enough to eat, yeah, I'm like him. That image of God is not saying that. So Jesus is turning their understanding of who God is and the people God is looking for to bless. He is absolutely turning that on its head and saying, you guys are looking up to see me, and all those people you're stepping on while you're looking up, they're the ones I identify with. And we're all going, yeah. I mean, even this guy right here is going, ooh, wow, that's not who I thought we were. That's not how I thought I got my way into the sheep group. And that's it. So yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks for hanging in there. And that's it. And that's how it is. Jesus is saying the king in his parable about how we, avoid the goat group and end up in the sheep group. Is saying it's because of you identifying with the people who are beneath you, not the people who are above you. Now, I'm going to say more about that. I'm not done with that, because there's another point I want to make, but I want to finish the parable before I make that point. But don't let me sign off here until I finish that point, because we're not done with that. So hang on to that. So the people who Jesus is the people. I do speak English. Hold on. The people in Jesus' parable who are understand who hear this, even the ones in the sheep group are like, that's where we saw you. I mean, they're even shocked by it, because the people in that group weren't looking for God there. What they were doing, they weren't doing this to say, I'm going to give this man a drink out of my gigantic water jug because I want to, bless God with sharing my water. That's not what they were saying. They were doing it because they were good people, and they wanted to serve. And that's the distinction that I want to come back to. Okay. So, all right. So they're all over there and on the right. This is, again, I don't know which way I'm pointing on your screen, but this is my right. So that's the way we're going. Okay. All right. Okay. So verse 40. So the people in the sheep group said, when did we see you like this? Verse 40. Here's what Jesus has the king say. And the king will say, I tell you the truth, when you did to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me. Okay. And everybody's, even in the sheep group, are still going, that's not the way I've always understood it, but okay. I mean, we're not gonna try to talk you out of this, Jesus, because we're in the sheep group. We're kind of happy about that. But they still have questions. Okay, so verse 41. Then the king will turn to those on the left, the goat group, and say, away with you, you cursed ones, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons. And I know people get upset with this verse. I'm going to explain it, so hang on. Actually, let's do this before we get to it. All right, so what is this eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons? What he's doing is he's setting up a dichotomy here. One side, the sheep group is going to the best of the best, heaven. I think we get that. The other group is going to a place. Jesus, for the purpose of the parable, needs to illustrate how bad this is. I think we all could agree that the way he describes this is pretty bad. Eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons. I think we all could agree, not a place we want to end up. Okay, I'm pretty sure the 33 of you who are logged in right now need no explanation of that. So this place has been prepared. Now, this place has been prepared for the devil and his demons. So the first thing I want you to realize, it was not prepared for the goat group people. Okay? This place was not prepared to cast people into. All right? I want to be very clear about that. In Jesus' parable, this place was created for specific people, devils and demons, not the goats. Okay? Again, I want to stress that clearly. This was not made for the devil. This was not made for the goats. This place was created for the devil and demons. Why? Because in this situation, there are people who are trying to entice people to do things they should not do. Devils and demons. That's exactly what they do. I've said this a million times. I'm going to continue to say it as long as I'm drawing breath. That is, the devil exists for one purpose. The only thing he does is he lies. That's it. He doesn't do anything else. You know, I know the movies have him, do all this magic crap and all this. No, he lies. He tells lies. That's it. He doesn't fly. He doesn't have a pitchfork. He doesn't have a tail. He doesn't have a goofy beard. He doesn't have horns. None of that stuff. He just tells lies. That's it. Now, he's really good at it. So don't underestimate him. But he does not do anything else but tell people lies. And one of the things that he lied about in this particular situation, especially in light of this parable I'm telling you, is the lie was, see that guy in the gutter? That's not the king. See that guy over there who is hungry? That's not the king. See these guys in prison and need somebody? No, that's not the king. See the stranger who has no home, no place to belong? That's not the king. That's the lie. That's the lie. What the devils and demons were doing and are doing to this very day is they are enticing people to look away from where God actually is and trying to turn people away from him. Look, pick your example today. There are plenty of them out there. And God is going to get so sick of that, going to get so fed up of that a place has been prepared to cast them into. You want to read more about that? Go read the closing chapters of Revelation. It's extremely clear. I don't know if that's exactly what I meant by that, but the imagery of the fire and brimstone is in there. Here, this place is created for the devils and demons and anybody who follows them. Anybody enticed by the lie that leads them away from the Lord. That's why Jesus, again, picks his words here very, very carefully. This place was not created for goats. It was created for demons. The people want to identify as goats because they've been lied to by the demons. That's where they're going because that's who they're following. But Jesus is saying, but that wasn't necessary. Only the people who were confused by lie. And look, the lie can sound really good. We've all fallen for it at one time or another, and we've missed the king in the process. But our desire is to get it right more often than we get it wrong, to not be fooled as much as we get it right. And that's what Jesus is encouraging us here to do, is keep your eyes open. You're going to see God in places you never expected. Flip side of that, you're going to encounter devils and demons in places you didn't expect to see them either, which might be an even scarier concept. But you want to be careful about people who are lying to you, because all liars do is they want to disguise and obfuscate the truth. They want to get you looking away from it. So if the truth is here, they want you to look over there. And that's exactly what the devils and demons are doing. So in falling for the lie and following what's going on here, they're led astray. Now, Jesus never says people are branded sheep or goats from birth. Sheep and goats are revealed by their actions. What do they do? And he says that here. He says that clearly in here. People who are helping people they didn't think were the kings, those are the sheep. The people who have a natural inclination to go forward and help, those are the sheep. And the easiest way to convince somebody to stop being a goat and start being a sheep in this parable is one of the sheep who reached out to a goat. Turn life around. Somebody who may have been hurting, didn't have water, didn't have a home, was in prison, and they were going down the goat path, but they had a sheep get in the way. That's how this works. That's how we can make the one group really big. Because one thing he does not say here, when he divides the sheep and the goats, he doesn't say it's an even split. 50% on one side, 50% on the other. Depending on how well the sheep follow this, there may be nobody on the goat side. There doesn't have to be. It's not required that there are people on the goat side. Because the place that Jesus, according to this parable, that was created for the fire and brimstone that we all hate so much, that wasn't created for goats. It wasn't like Jesus is like, well, we got this place, we need to fill it up with goats. That's not what he's saying here. That place was created for devils and demons, which is exactly where they're going. But there's no reason for anyone else to go with them. Not one reason. So what the sheep are out there doing when they're inviting in the stranger and they're giving hospitality to the sick and they're trying to give clothes to people who need dignity, is they're out there turning goats into sheep. That's what they're doing. They know that's what they're doing because that's why it's so important to them. That's why they continue to go forward and do this. Because in doing so, they're making the goat group real small. Doesn't mean they're going to entice them all over, but there's no reason not to try. That's what the parable's trying to get us to see here, is that we sheep, and I'm saying we sheep because we all see ourselves on the sheep side as well. Every one of you should, including you, Matt Clements. But we see ourselves as sheep. Our job is to go find the goats. And when we find those goats, we may find somebody who needs a home, needs a new shirt, needs a good hot meal, needs a drink of something that's water and not anything else. We may find somebody like that who's living the goat life. And we turn them around, make them a sheep. Because again, there's nothing to say you can't swap sides. I perfectly understand biologically that goats can't become sheep, but this is not a biological parable. This is a parable about condition of your heart. And hearts change every day, going both directions. And it's our job as sheep to continue to turn them in that direction. Okay? All right. Let me keep going here. No hope to finish this. Okay, verse 41. So the king will turn to those on the left and say, away with you, you cursed ones, for the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons. All right. Here's why. Verse 42, I was hungry and you didn't feed me. I was thirsty and you didn't give me a drink. I was a stranger and you didn't invite me in your home. I was naked and you didn't give me any clothing. I was sick and in prison and you didn't visit me. So everything the sheep group did, the goat group didn't do. And that's what they're talking about. And then they will reply with the exact same reply as the sheep group gave. The goat group says the same thing the sheep group says. I'm sorry, when did we see you like that? Because again, just like the sheep, they're like, I'm pretty sure I would have noticed the naked king walking down the street. It just seems like a really difficult thing to miss. But somehow they did. And so they said, verse 44. Then they will reply, Lord, and when did we see you hungry, thirsty, blah, blah, blah. Verse 45. They said, I tell you the truth. When you refused to help the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were refusing to help me. What Jesus is, what the image that Jesus is using here is Jesus hates goats. But let me explain what that means. He doesn't hate goats for being goats. He hates goats that are left goats by the sheep. He doesn't like it when that happens. And the sheep who are seeing the person in the gutter, seeing the person in prison, seeing the person in the food line, seeing those people, they're seeing goats and they're saying, that person could be a sheep. That person could be a sheep. We could lift this person up, maybe a hand up, and we can make them a sheep. We could get them out of the wrong group, put them in the right group. That's what sheep say. Because the sheep understand that our group can be big. This isn't like a football team where you can only have 11 guys on the field at one time. That's not how this works. We could have a gazillion sheep and look across the field and see no goats, and we all be happy with that. That's why we go out and find the guy in the prison. That's why we go out and find the hungry. That's why we go out and find the thirsty. That's why we go out and find the naked. We go out and do that because we're not afraid of them. They're not our enemy. We want to bring them to our side. And because when this great divide happens by this king, we want to be able to say, look at all these people we have. We're going to do a divide, and the group is still in one. It's still in one group. And we're all, yes, we love that. And the devils and demons can go live it up in the lake of fire. Great. Because no goats are going with them, because we didn't leave any goats. We made everybody a sheep. That's what Jesus is saying. That's the mindset of somebody who's going to say, I don't care if that person is sick. That person still has value. Period. I'm not going to be talked out of that. And that's why this is so important. That's why the mission is so vital, is because that's what designates a sheep. A sheep sees sheep everywhere. And to a sheep, there's only two kinds of people: sheep and potential sheep. We don't see goats because we don't accept that. We don't accept people, being lied to. And again, in our day and age, in our modern times, pick your lie. There's plenty of them out there. But we don't accept that. We don't leave people in that because we got a truth that stomps lies. And we're going to go forward with that and try to pull people out of that group, put them in ours. Because when it comes to this divide, there's no penalty for too many men on the field like there is in football. That penalty doesn't exist. So we can overwhelm them in odds alone and not think twice about it. Okay? So when we get to the final verse of this, and then I'm going to go back and open up for some questions here tonight because I didn't do that last week. Verse 46. And they will go away to eternal punishment, and the righteous will go into eternal life. Again, it's one of those verses that people get really upset about, because what happens to the people on that side if they end up going that way? What happens to them? And here's the interesting piece of that. Both sides of this have an eternal component to what they're doing. There's eternity in the hearts of every person. There's a potential eternity inside of all of us. Okay? And that doesn't get canceled by ignoring it. That doesn't get canceled by being lied to about it. That doesn't get canceled by pretending it doesn't exist. It still exists. And what the sheep are concerned with doing is they want to redeem that side, to be able to pull them over. And that's what they're looking. That's what sheep are looking for. Because that's why we go out and we see potential sheep in all these things that the world would refer to as a lost cause. Okay. And what Jesus sets up here in verse 46, and it doesn't translate into English very well, but what he is setting apart here is he is setting apart two opposites. Okay. Two sides of a coin, two things that are mutually exclusive. And the two things that are mutually exclusive here in verse 46 are life and punishment. The word here that's punishment is more like torment. So on one side of the coin, you got life. The other side, you have torment. And that's what's going on. Now, you think, that's kind of harsh. It's kind of a harsh debate. Yes, it is. I'm not denying that. But we got to ask ourselves, if people in the GOAT group, if there are still people in the GOAT group, and I think we could all agree currently, there are people in the GOAT group still. Why would somebody choose a side that says, all right, you're going to be one or the other. You're going to get life or torment. And how many people are going, torment? Right here, this guy, I choose torment. Nobody's going to make that choice. So how could there possibly be people in the GOAT group? Because they have been lied to about it. They haven't heard anybody take an hour to very passionately explain this parable to them. They haven't done that. They have been lied to, and they don't think it's torment. They call it something else. They call it freedom. They call it expression. They call it, choice. Pick your buzzword there. But they have been lied to about what that is. They don't think it's torment, even though it torments them, because that's how good the lie is. It hurts. It screws everything up. It points me down the wrong path. I know all that going into it, and it still seems wonderful. even though there's nothing wonderful about it, because I have been lied to that efficiently. That's what we're finding out here. Is the real enemy of the difference between sheep and goats is lies. It's not temptation like we often think of it being. Not temptation, it's being lied to, straight up lied. Because nobody is tempted to hurt themselves. That's not how this works. But lies can entice us to do the destroying ourselves. Because Satan doesn't have the power to destroy us. We have to accept the destruction through the line of garbage he's sending us. And that's why the goats have wandered into the wrong pasture, is because they're over there because they have been lied to and they bought the lie. And they ended up in that group. And the sheep are on the other side going, something needs to be done here. That's why when we find people in difficult situations, I don't know, such as being hungry, thirsty, without a home and without dignity, so on and so forth, those people are great candidates to be lied to, but they are also great candidates to be ministered to. One thing Jesus doesn't include here, but I think would absolutely fit in his analogy, is young people. They are the most susceptible people in society to some of this garbage going around. Again, turn on the news to find out what I'm talking about. But this kind of despair that's going around today, it's because they bought the lie. Nobody gets up in the morning and thinks, gosh, I'd really like that. I'd really like to experience a whole bunch of despair today. I think that would be awesome. Nobody says that, but they have to be lied into it. And it happens so much. And one selfless act by somebody who sees through the lie can point a person to the truth in a way nothing else can. And that's what Jesus is desperately trying to get people to see here. Jesus is telling us this parable because he don't want any goats. He doesn't want anybody to be a goat. He wants everybody in the sheep group. And that's what's most important to him. I mean, look, if you're going to suffer crucifixion and then come back from the dead, you want that act, as terrible as it is, to redeem as many people as possible. He wants, to save infinity number of people. That's why he did it. So for Jesus to look down as the king in this analogy and see people who are enticed away from that grace and redemption because of a lie, that is heartbreaking. So that's why he's telling the sheep, look, great on you. All right. This is a great thing you've experienced. It's a great life you're living. But don't step over the goats who may be on the ground looking for God. Don't have your eyes up to the heavens when they should be down on the ground. Seeing who's down there. Who can you lift up? Who can you pull out of this? Because there's going to come a day, and there will come a day when it's going to matter, and it's going to matter a lot. And that's the analogy he's trying to get across. There's a day that this is really, really going to matter, and on that day, it's going to matter to a lot of people. And there's a lot of people who've chosen to be goats who could very well have been sheep. And that's going to go poorly for them. And they'll have to live forever knowing they were confused by a lie that was told so amazingly well that they were fooled by it. They bought into it. And that's going to be the greatest thing of all. The greatest letdown of all is the fact that because they didn't have anybody show them the lie that they were falling into, things ended poorly for them. And that's just how it is. So, man, I'm like sweaty now. You guys got me all fired up here tonight. I don't know why you guys do that to me. All right, I got about 6 minutes here. Tell me, you got any feedback? I got some questions here. All right, I'm going to read these couple questions, but I want you guys to get in the comments. Talk to me. I want to hear from you. I let you guys not. Matt Clements don't want to talk tonight, so Matt gets a gold star. Matt is clearly a sheep, no matter what he claims. But he's all there. And all right. Yes, Joyce. This will be up on YouTube. You can grab it sometime. Glad you love it, Matt. Glad you're here. Parker, what if goats are satisfied with being a goat? The only way that can happen, Parker, excellent question. The only way somebody can be satisfied being a goat is if they buy the lie. That's the only way that's going to work. Because, once somebody has a lie exposed, nobody's going to embrace it. I mean, if I know something is a lie, and I've been doing this job long enough that I actually can taste lies when people tell them to me. And many of you out there are in career fields where people lie to you a lot, and you see right through that, because once you're exposed to the truth, the lie loses all of its color, it loses all of its enticing. So if people are satisfied with being a goat, it's because they haven't truly experienced the truth. And the truth, I mean, Jesus even said it, truth will set you free. And that's absolutely true, because there is no lie out there, no matter how good it can be, that can stand up to the weakest truth ever spoken. So it can't happen. So if somebody is happy playing on that team, it's because they're still buying the lie. So good question, Parker. Yes, Jess is thanking Joyce for the delicious food. Y'all need to have Joyce make you some Chex Mix, man. She made me some today, and I ate the entire thing. I shared it with no one, and I had no regrets. So Matt says, to me, the most important thing as a Christian can understand is love the goats. Yes, because look, if you don't love the goats, then let them go to hell. Who cares? And that's why you have to care. You're not going to give food to somebody you don't care about. You're not going to water somebody you don't care about. You're not going to give clothing to somebody you don't care about. Now we can talk about levels of care, of course, but and what's appropriate and what isn't, of course. But at the end of the day, if you want to do some conversions, you're going to have to love them first. They're going to have to mean something to you more than just stats on the board. And that's why Jesus uses the analogy here and says the people were so excited to go out and speak to the goats and meet the people where they were. They were excited to do that because they cared. And you're absolutely right, Matt, about how important it is to love the goats, because all they are is fooled. That's it. They've been fooled by a very enticing lie, and that is no reason to give up on them. That is true. So, and Jess says, good question, Parker. Parker always asks good questions. So, all right, I got 3 minutes left. Anybody else got anything for the good of the order? Anything you want to discuss? Parker, how can we convert goats today? What are some examples? Because I find there to be a lot of hate when you try to talk to goats. Well, sure. Nobody likes to find out they're wrong. Especially if you got a deeply held belief. Nobody wants to be a part of that. But consistency is what gets us through. And by consistency, I mean not only consistency in your message, but consistency in your life. Because people who hate you, and look, we see this in the media all the time. If they can find a place to jump on you and destroy you, they're absolutely going to do it, because nobody wants to hear the truth. To quote Ben Shapiro, who says this all the time, facts don't care about your feelings, and that's an unfortunate thing. And when there's a lot of lies out there, and we don't want to give them up, and somebody comes along and says, maybe being a hedonist and only caring about yourself might not be the best way to go. People who are hedonists and want to worship themselves, they don't want to hear that, and that's why there's a lot of hate. But that's actually a sign that you're getting to them, because if their response is an angry response, it's only because you've bumped them, and that's a good thing. So and that's why we got to hang on to them. So and yeah, Parker. Sadly, that question does come from a pastor, and there's a lot of pastors out there. Consistency, man. Truth will outlast any lie out there, and that's what we got to hang on to, because we know where this is going. And look, if people are dead set on being fooled and they want to live the lie, I mean, you can't drag them away from it. But it's about consistency and a prayer and a hope that eventually they'll see that they're playing on the wrong team. So Matt's clapping out loud. I appreciate that. And Sandy, you're right. Yeah, Parker is absolutely correct. They do make it very difficult, because again, see, truth doesn't have to be aggressive. That's the cool part about truth. I don't have to be aggressive with truth. I can just live it and speak it and stand on it. And that's enough. I don't have to go out and attack people with truth. Now, if I have a lie, I have to go out and attack. I have to go in the aggressive if I have a lie, because just the presence of the truth cancels my lie. And that's why it's so difficult. If you got the truth, you don't need to scream and yell. You don't need to do any of that, because yes, you need to make a stand and not move. Absolutely. You may need to carry a sign, outside of a organization that you don't like. Absolutely. You may need to make your voice heard. Absolutely. But you don't have to be angry and aggressive about it, because truth doesn't need that. Lies need that, but truth doesn't. You don't have to scream and yell truth. You just stand on it. And that may not change everybody immediately, and that's their choice. But at the end of the day, it's about you standing on truth, and you're going to find that the foundation you're standing on is far better than what they're trying to sell to you. So, difficult, yes. You don't have to change goats and sheep like Jesus can. Effort is all I want. Yeah, effort is all Jesus is looking for. That's a lesson I learned a long time ago. Is that effort is what they're looking at, what the good Lord is looking for, because results belong to Christ, and I'm perfectly happy with that. I'm going to make sure that the conditions are right, and the things happen when they need to happen, and those kinds. Absolutely, but whatever happens from that, I'm perfectly happy to leave that one in God's hands. I'll set it up, but the execution is going to be the Lord's, and I don't want to have the situation fall through and fail because I didn't do my part. At the same time, I'm going to recognize that sometimes God's really going to have to really stand in there and stand on somebody to get them to see the error of their ways, because sometimes lies can be really entrenched, and those kind of lies are tough to get out. So, reasonably happy in this life, Matt. You're absolutely right. So, all right, everybody. I want to say a humongous thank you to the almost 40 of you that have been in here tonight. We got 34 of you in here right now. The number keeps fluctuating a little bit, but thank you all for coming out. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you want to leave me a comment here in the chat or send me something. Again, weird for me. I'm in here in my office. I'm in this building by myself right now, and I've just had an hour conversation, and only one voice has been heard. So this is a very bizarre platform, but yeah, so be it. But I'd love to hear from you. I want to know if this is resonating. I want to know if you enjoy this. I want to know if it's something that's working for you, if it's something you'd like to continue. Planning to be here next week. Before I sign off, I'm going to give you a preview of what we're doing next week, but I got to walk over there before I can do that. So, yeah, so appreciate you. And I'd love to hear some feedback from you. Let me go grab my paper for next week. Hang on. Let's see. Next week is the 13th. Okay, so next week we're going to switch over to the Gospel of Luke. And, oh, yeah. All right, we're going to be next week. We're going to be looking at Luke 17, verses 20 to 37. And it's Jesus arguing with the Pharisees, which is something he really enjoyed doing. So that's, if you want to take a sneak peek and see what we're going to be doing next week, go to Luke 17, verses 20 to 37. And that's what we're going to be looking at next Tuesday. So, hey, thank you all for coming out, being a part of this with me. Again, I really appreciate it. And I appreciate any feedback you got. Thank you, Miriam. And thanks, Crystal. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate you guys being on. And thanks for your nice comments. Just want to know that this is something that's meaningful to you, because I certainly enjoy doing it, but we're not doing this to feed my ego. So thank you all for coming out, and for all you ladies who work so hard on the Christmas dinner. And I know a couple of you have jumped in here tonight after a long day. I appreciate that. So thank you all for being here. Be here on Sunday. We're going to be taking a look at Christmas story. We're going to be on the shepherds one more week. I know we've done the shepherds the last 2 weeks, but as I was putting the sermon together for today, I thought, I'm not done with the shepherds yet. So we're going to do shepherds one more week before we continue on and be a part of that. So come Sunday, and we'll discuss the shepherds and what they, one more lesson from them, because they are really doing well. I've enjoyed working with them the last couple of weeks. So thanks, Beth Reedy, Cindy Moran. Thank you. Thanks, Brian Lynch. And Matt Clements says, happy birthday, Jess. Jess, is it your birthday today? Actually, I think it's your birthday tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So, and Chris and Kevin, thank you guys. Appreciate you guys coming out. And it was good to see you tonight, Chris. So, all right. Next week, next Tuesday, providing you all show up, we'll have another discussion. Again, it's Luke 17, verses 20 to 37. And we'll be looking forward to that. I hope to see you all on Sunday as we're going to continue our conversation with the shepherds. Appreciate all you guys are doing. Go get some sleep. And remember, before you go to bed, go wash your hands.